Welcome back. In this episode, I talk about how I got started in the business I'm running today, which is Better 3. And I'm sorry, this is going to be so funny because how the universe brought me clients in the early stages of this business was nothing short of miraculous. And I attribute it to the universe because it was very unusual how it happened. And I'm not a person who likes to market myself. I hate marketing. And the funny thing is people come to me for marketing help and I'm like, I'm not a marketer. And they're like, huh? But anyway, that's for a different episode. So in this particular episode, I'm going to be talking about what occurred. Like, first of all, where I was at in my career, what had happened to me in my personal life, and what led to me starting my business. And it was not really in the plan, if you will. And I leave you with a really interesting prompt that I think will be very inspiring for you and help you turn things around if you're stuck with your business right now or wondering, how can I level up? So I think that the prompt for this episode is going to be really beneficial. Thanks again for bearing with me in my storytelling of the life and journey of Terry as a solopreneur, because I want you to get to know me. If there's any part of my journey that I share that inspires you to deal better or avoid pitfalls in your business, then it's worth it. I hope you have those positive takeaways from it. Anyway, thanks for being here, and here's the show. Welcome to My Solopreneur Life. I'm Terry Pappy, your gracious host, and I am so glad you're here. I have a wonderful episode for you. Sit back, relax, and let's have some real talk about what it is to be a solopreneur. Well, you're going to get a kick out of this episode because this is where I'm going to talk about my current company, Better 3, and how that all came into being and how it got started. Because my second season is going to be all about starting, and I'll probably reference this particular episode. Let's get started. Okay, this is back in 2000 to 2006. During those years, I was the director of website development for Marriott Vacation Club, which was at the time was the timeshare arm of Marriott International, the hotel brand. And our offices were located in Orlando. That's where I lived at the time. And I had gotten really good at all things web. So I had done my training at Georgia Tech. I had that experience working for not only the Orlando Sentinel in the early years of web design and all that crazy stuff that was happening in the late 90s, and then went to work for an ad agency and then another real estate company. And I was doing basically web stuff in those roles. So the Orlando Sentinel at the newspaper is where I got the big shift from traditional printing into the digital world. And I was there to stay. I was totally geeking out on all the nerd stuff and just really got into it. And for a creative, because I'm a creative, right? To get into that was just so exciting. And it was very rudimentary back then, believe me. It was hand coding, the stuff we have today. We are so spoiled with what we have at our fingertips, and it's only going to improve as we go through and get more serious with AI and how that's just exploding. When I was working at Marriott, that's where I was managing a small team, and I was part of a larger team in the IT department that was in charge of all of I think it was 4 brands at the time, all their websites, all their properties that were part of the vacation club. So of those 4 brands, we managed all their websites and the content and so on. And it was a lot of fun. I really learned a lot. I learned a lot about the back end, what the developers were working on, coding and things like that, how the servers worked. So that was really cool to kind of see that whole experience unfold. And during that time in my personal life, my husband Chuck was going through, at the time, some very serious cancer treatments, diagnoses. He was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma. And I'm not going to go into all that detail because I want this to be about my business. But I wanted to tell you that because it set the mentality for who I was and what I was experiencing at the time. And so throughout those 6 years, and this is why I will always say, and I may have said this on another episode, how much I appreciate the company Marriott International because of the people that were like my bosses, my managers, and just how committed they were to supporting me while I was dealing with this in my personal life. And it was very hard. They allowed me to work from home the last 2 years before he passed away. And after he passed away in 2004, they kept me on even though they outsourced our entire team. So within a year of Chuck passing away, they basically took the entire web team with the exception of like 2 developers, and they outsourced it. It was just at that time with the economy was taking a dramatic shift. They saw it coming. They knew timeshare was not going to be as strong or as popular. And so they, in order to change how the budgets were managed, and Lord knows how the corporations think, they outsourced it. So all of a sudden there were 30 people that were out of jobs. They eliminated our roles. But they knew what I was dealing with in my personal life. And they moved, and remember, I'm a creative, I'm not a programmer, but yet we were in the IT department of the company. They moved me to a special project that IT was working on. It was some sort of help desk software that we were insourcing, and we were getting that all sorted out. I got moved on to this project, and for a while I was doing okay. I mean, obviously it was something that it was like I remember referring to it as a life raft. That job was a life raft for me after Chuck passed away, because once all that was over in January of 2004, I was so grief stricken that I needed something to focus on. I needed something to, kind of buoy my emotions, my grief, and just help me through it. And so, because I love to work, as you know, I threw myself into that job, and I was no longer doing the web stuff. I was on this new project, which was, it was okay. It wasn't something I would have picked, but I needed the work. I wanted to stay with the company. I felt very beholden to them because of the grace that they had given me while he was in his last year and a half of really struggling, where I worked from home essentially for the most part. And this is before the pandemic. This is way before this work from home thing even was an idea. So we didn't even have the kind of tech, like there was no Zoom back then. And it was like email. That's all we could really rely on. So that was incredible for me. I felt so much appreciation to the company for giving me that grace. And so I felt obliged to continue with this role that they gave me. But soon enough, the project ended. We basically completed it. The new program was installed, the onboarding, everything. And I found myself sitting around with nothing to do. And that was hard for me because I like being busy. I like getting things done. I like working. And it wasn't shortly after that I ended up getting called into the meeting room where the supervisor of that team said to me that they were eliminating my position. And of course, I had the opportunity to look for other roles in the company as I had found that one, but I wasn't able to find that because the economy, now this is 2006. This was in the spring of 2006. So this was right at the peak of the real estate bubble, if you will. And 2006 is when things started to backslide and we started to have some problems in the economy. So they were not hiring. There was like no room at the inn for Terry. So I ended up taking my severance. I had been 6 years with them. So I took my severance and basically went home with my tail between my legs going, what the F am I going to do now? Because that was my life raft. That job kept my mind occupied. It gave me purpose. It gave me a way to contribute that I didn't feel like I was able to do after Chuck had passed away, because there was a good 6 years of caregiving and cancer treatments, and it was very intense what we went through, especially my husband, God bless him. And So here I am in a newer home with two mortgages. One of the mortgages was at an adjustable rate, and every month it would go up by several $100s. I was still freaking out because I didn't have a job. And to me, that was regular income, benefits, etc. As many people do who get laid off, they face these things. I was like, all right, what do I do? Don't let myself fall into this pit of despair because of what happened, because of what I dealt with losing my husband, the grief, the loss of job. It was like one loss after another. The decade had been very hard on me. I lost my dad. The next year I lost my sister. And then I lost my husband, Chuck. And those were all within 4 years of each other. So as you can say, I was kind of beat up from the standpoint of loss. And it hit me really hard. I was basically all by myself. And I had obviously wonderful friends. Thank God for my friends that I had. They really were there for me. And I will be forever grateful for how they showed up and how they supported me in this time. So here I am with two mortgages. I've got money in the savings account, so I'm okay there. But what do I do? And that's kind of where I was. The first thing, obviously, the knee-jerk thing after being laid off was to find another job like that. Because of the economy, and I've faced this situation before, but because of the economy, I couldn't find a job. And it was like the universe was pointing me in a very specific direction. Looking back at it in retrospect, I see that it was ripe for me to start my own business. So once I got real clear that I wasn't going to be getting another job, there was really no opportunities that fit where I was at as far as the level of skill and the income I wanted to make and the role I wanted to have, because I was at a director level role at Marriott. I was like, well, maybe I should go back to school. And I'd always had a love of writing and natural talent for writing. And when I graduated high school, I couldn't decide whether I wanted to go to journalism school or whether I wanted to go to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, which you heard that story if you've been listening to prior episodes. So you know about that story. And I thought, well, maybe now it's time for me to shore up my writing skills. So I looked at UCF for their they actually had a creative writing course, but it was a bachelor's program, which meant that I would have had to go back and literally start from scratch with school. Of course, I could apply a lot of my credits from the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, but they didn't really transfer well. It probably, I only could have brought over maybe less than 20 credits. So that was a non-starter for me. And I knew I wanted a job. Remember, I love to work. I really do. And for me, finding work, finding a job was the most appealing thing at the time. Whether it was being driven by desperation because I needed income, or whether it was just because I was bored and I just love to work. Combination of both, probably. And so I ended up deciding I'm just going to start freelancing. I know how to design websites. I know how to write copy. I know how to design there's so many things in the business of art that I know how to do. And I know how to help people make money. So in the years leading up to that point in my life, I had learned a lot about sales. I'd learned a lot about, obviously, the business of art, communications, marketing, etc. And so I was like, okay, well, let me give this a try. So you're going to love this story. So I'm living in this neoclassical planned community here in Orlando. They had taken the Navy base and they decommissioned it, cleaned it up, and then the city of Orlando bought it and they put up this community called Baldwin Park. And for any of you who know Orlando, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, they did a really nice plan. There's 1,100 acres, really nice homes, good builders. They had a mix of builders. It had the grocery store. It had a school, a daycare. It was mixed. And so I ended up moving there I moved out of the house that Chuck and I lived in. It was just a little too heartbreaky for me to stay there. And I moved into a townhome and so on and so forth. And so that's the community I lived in. So when I decided I was going to hang out my shingle and be a freelancer, because that's what you did when you were a graphic artist, you freelanced, right? Look at Fiverr, look at Elance, look at all these platforms today that people just like myself at the time hung out their shingle and said, hey, I'll do this for an hourly rate. And that's where I started. So you're going to love this. This is so funny. So this community had what they called a classifieds. And it was I can't remember if it was a website or a newsletter or both. But anyway, any resident who lived in the community could post, hey, I've got a bicycle for sale. Here's a picture. It's kind of like Facebook Marketplace is today. And I went ahead and I put an ad, and it was just a text ad. I laugh because this is so like pedestrian how I started. And this is why I'm telling you this story, because it is so okay to start however you start. Just start, right? So I put an ad in and I said, I'm laughing because I'm thinking, how like they have the sandwich boards and you can put a sandwich board on. It says, like we'll work for food, or the homeless fella who's standing at the intersection with a piece of cardboard that says, please help, we'll do whatever for food, or that's what I felt like. I felt like I was at that stage in my mentality. My mindset was like, I'm in the gutter. I've been through the worst. I got laid off. My husband died. Right. So I was just not in the best mindset for this all to happen. So, and I had no clue. We didn't have AI, Chat GPT back then. We didn't have the tools to do a comparison of hourly rates for freelancers. Like I had no idea what to charge. And so I think I ended up settling on something like $37 an hour, some weird number. I don't even know how I got to that number. And I put an ad in and it said, we'll design websites for Baldwin Park residents for half price. So it was like a coupon. So, if you live in the community and you need help with a website, I'll do it for half price. So I'm sorry. It's just, when I look back at how desperate I was that I put something like that out there. And here's an aside. I am not good at marketing my business. I'm not good at marketing myself, at pimping myself out, at, doing that bro marketing where you're like, hey man, sign up for this, or, I can't do that stuff. And I'll be talking about that in an upcoming episode where I talk about what I learned about human design that explains all that. And which was a huge, just last year, I kind of had this giant revelation. Anyway, so for me to put that ad out it felt so desperate, so kind of smarmy and salesy. And I was like, oh God, I can't believe, because it's, these are families with kids in school and retirees. There's quite a mix in this community. Well, lo and behold, I get an email from Greg Engelman. And Greg at the time lived in the community. And I'll never forget Greg. He's the star that got me started. And he reached out and he said, I need help with a website, a simple website for my business. And I think his dad was like a designer and so Greg had a level of sophistication in what he wanted to do. And as I remember he wanted like Apple quality, okay, for a less than Walmart budget. And Greg, if you're listening to this, God bless you. I just thought that was the funniest thing, because you had very good taste, and you wanted it and you saw an opportunity to get it on the cheap. Good for you, right? That was my first client. Greg was my first client. And so I was thrilled to be able to actually be on my own, to actually be able to get my own client on my own in the weird way I did. And that led to a chain reaction of other things happening. See, this is the beauty of when you let the universe work. So if you put an intention out there, if you're like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a freelancer. I'm going to have my own business. I'm going to do my own thing. Now's the best time to do something like that. I put that out there in the universe, and the universe delivered. And the way it delivered was really interesting because it met me where I was at. So in other words, I didn't have any confidence. I had zero confidence in my ability to run a business, to find my own, to rainmake, find my own clients. I had zero confidence in what I was going to charge, how I was going to deliver it. I mean, I was over delivering like crazy because I wanted to create this amazing experience. But still, I was charging by the hour and I worked really fast, so I really wasn't making a lot of money. But anyway, what happened was, so I worked with Greg and we became very good friends. And to this day, I could pick up the phone and call him and he would answer. And this is back in 2006. Okay. So this is a very, very long time ago. And great guy, very successful. So he introduced me to another individual who was in the mergers and acquisitions, and he had his own consultancy. And he said, this guy needs a website, so go help him. So then I helped him, right? And so those are the first two clients that I had. And then something really interesting happened. Listen to the details of this kind of universal, cosmic way of how I started my business. As I was working with those first two clients, the confidence started to lift. My ability to interact with the clients, to do the work, to deliver for them, I was so happy. It's like I was so filled with joy and fulfillment and like, wow, I've found something that I can actually do, make money at, and enjoy. And what was happening at Marriott was a lot of layoffs. And so there was this echelon after echelon of executives of all different tiers within the organization that kept getting laid off. They were doing some pretty massive cutbacks, ended up eventually selling the Marriott Vacation Club brand and business just to get out of that business. When I started seeing some of these people getting laid off, there was one in particular, again, another client that I have tremendous respect for and that really helped me learn a lot about customer experience that I had worked with. And he was an executive at Marriott Vacation Club. And his name's Roy Barnes. Great talent. He decided to go out on his own. And so because I had worked for Marriott doing what I did, I became known. In other words, I had a reputation in the company and people knew that I did what I did with the websites and such. And so Roy reached out to me and he said, I'm starting my own business. I need everything. I need a logo. I need a corporate ID. I need a website. I need this, that, and the other. Well, I started working with Roy and that was a wonderful thing. So I'd kind of cut my teeth on Greg and his referral client, Daryl, and was doing that work. And those were small engagements, although Greg did come back to me quite a few times over the years for other work, which is I'm grateful for. And so I did this work for Roy and I really enjoyed working with Roy. And I worked with him for quite a few years, did quite a bit of work with Roy. So get this. This is what the part of the story that I wanted to share with you. So Roy was a fellow in one of these organizations, management organization. He was giving a keynote. And one of the attendees in the audience came up after the keynote, and her name is Cassandra Frangos. And she came up to Roy and she said, "Hey, Roy," this is Roy telling me about this, by the way. "Roy, your website's really cool. I'm going out on my own. Who did that for you? Because I need somebody to help me with mine." So Roy gave her my name. Well, she never reached out to me. This is so amazing how the universe works. She never reached out to me, but she met another one of her colleagues, and his name is Ed Barrows. And this is all up in Boston, by the way. I forgot to tell you. He was up in Boston delivering this. All these people were based in Boston. And Ed Barrows, who spoke with Cassandra and got my information, she gave my information to Ed. Ed then reached out to me. Well, I'm not going to go through every single client that came out of that exchange, but I will tell you, I had so many clients in the Boston area, and they all came through that one referral gateway. And it was nothing I did. In other words, I never marketed up there. I never asked any of those clients, to market for me or find me a new client or make a referral. Never did any of that. I just did great work, and it just happened organically. And that is how my business grew pretty fast within a couple of years. And I'm going to talk about how I came up with the name Better 3, because when I started, it was called Terry Pappy Creative Services. I mean, how creative is that? That is not very creative, right? But that's just what I called my business at the time. And so I ended up getting some amazing clients in Boston. I had an ambulance company. I had a couple transportation companies. I had a lot of consultants. Ed Barrows is an incredible consultant in the world of strategy, nonprofit now. And to this day, like I just finished a project for him this morning. So I've been working with Ed since 2008, if you will. So that's how it can happen for you. And the prompt I want to give you is, it's not about how can you find business or create this referral stream, although I probably will be talking about that in some future episode when I get more into practical tactics on how to grow your business. But what I'd like for you to think about in this episode prompt is, when you put an intention out to the world to say basically to the universe, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want to feel joy about. This is how I want to express myself. This is how I want to earn an income. And this is how I want to help people. When you are clear about that, when you really feel it in your belly and you put that out there with some big intention, things fall into place when you allow them. So if you're looking for evidence of things working out, they will work out and you'll see the signs, as long as your intention is clear and you stick with that intention and you keep looking forward. However, if you put an intention out there and all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm not seeing anything, and you begin to doubt, you begin to worry, you begin to almost like muddy the water, well, the universe is going to give you back the things that actually support your doubt, support your worry. So when you're putting your intention out there, this is kind of like a two-part prompt. The first part is, what intention are you putting out there? And are you clear on it? It's kind of like goal setting. It's like, here's my strategy. This is what I want to do. But make it an emotional experience when you do that. And once you've done that, go back and check yourself to see if you're doubting, if you're worried about, like, I haven't seen any signs or I haven't gotten any results. Not that you need to just sit back and wait. That's not how it works. You need to be in constant action and expectation for good things and for all these things to unfold. And I think that's what happened to me. Once I got those first 2 clients, I was like, I can do this. This can actually work. And then Roy showed up out of the blue. He calls me on the phone and I was like, holy crap, this executive is calling me. What the heck is this all about? And then once he was up there doing his keynote, he connected with somebody, and that just dominoed all through Boston to give me years and years. Like the ambulance company, I worked for them for 10 years and helped them grow at a very important stage in that business. And it was a great relationship. In fact, one summer I even moved up there and spent the summer renting a house just so I could serve those clients better, which was a lot of fun, by the way. Take a moment to look at how that shows up as far as your intention and what you're expecting. And really consider my story and how things just kind of opened up and started falling out of space. And I will tell you this, whenever I did have doubts, whenever I started to worry, all of a sudden it's like everything became constricted. It was like crickets. Nothing was happening. I wasn't getting any referrals. I was not getting any new clients. I was starting to have problems with the client. So then I realized, it's because I'm focused on the wrong thing. I'm not focused on where I'm headed, the positive growth, the new clients, the new opportunities. I can learn and develop new projects and work on new things for my clients. I'm worried about clients going away, not getting another referral, running out of money, not being able to pay my bills, blah, 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 blah. So you can see how, depending on what you're looking at, what you're choosing to focus on is going to drive all that. Take a moment to think about all of that intention and where you're putting your energy and what results you're getting. Hope that's helpful. See you in the next show. Well, I know you're disappointed, but that's it for this episode. Listen, the great news is there's another one coming, so stay tuned. Anyway, I just want to make sure that you do the prompt. If this episode had a prompt, and you get that homework done because you're going to be a better solopreneur. How's that for a maternal finger shaking at you? Hey, listen, thanks so much for being here, for giving me time of your day, and, for taking it on. So if you want to learn more and stay connected with me, just head on over to mysolopreneurlife.com. Thanks a bunch. See you soon. That was pretty good. I think I'll keep that one.